It started with a single photo, blurry, underexposed, clearly taken without flash. But what caught attention wasn't what could be seen, but where it was taken. A lounge in Gangnam, not known for exclusivity, but known well enough by fans who track familiar furniture patterns and fixture placements. The lighting in the photo was dim, nearly orange, with just enough ambient glow to highlight the outline of someone at the far corner table. Users on X, formerly Twitter, quickly began comparing shoulder lines, hair length, the barely visible bracelet. And within 40 minutes, a Korean account posted a side-by-side with Jimin's latest airport look. The hoodie matched, the time matched. But what didn't match, what immediately caused the shift from casual interest to tightened breath, was the presence of a second figure across from him. A girl. Not staff, not celebrity, not masked. Just a girl. One hand partly raised, possibly holding a glass. Another leaned forward, possibly resting near his. The distance between them wasn't suspicious. That was the problem. It wasn't enough to make it ignorable, but too much to be anything but intentional. Why that table? Why not a private booth? Why not cancel the appearance altogether? Comments piled up under the image. He knew someone could see. They were too far in to hide, too close to dismiss. One reply got pinned. You don't sit at that table by accident. And that's when the tension started growing. Not around who she was, but why he did it there. Within hours, fan accounts began mapping the lounge's layout, using archived Instagram posts and Google reviews, tracing the angle of the shot to confirm what many were still trying not to believe. The back corner wasn't a secluded booth. It was visible from the mezzanine bar above. It's not a shadow space, one user wrote. It's a slow spotlight. The girl's profile remained unidentified, but that barely mattered anymore. The focus had already shifted to how they were sitting. Too still, too calm. One observer pointed out the symmetry of their posture. Like two people who've done this before. Others pushed back. He's allowed to exist, someone wrote, but that only triggered more scrutiny. Then why here? Screenshots emerged from a fan who claimed to have visited the lounge earlier that day. The place wasn't empty. There were other patrons, staff, music, phones. He knew that, someone replied. He counts on knowing that. Threads began collecting similar moments. Dim places, unannounced sightings, side profiles in reflection. It wasn't the idea of someone being there with him that unsettled fans. It was the proximity to being seen, the quiet dare in sitting just far enough to pretend no one would care. A single comment summed up the mood. He didn't try to hide it. He just didn't care if it got noticed. And from that moment on, the conversation stopped being about the girl. It became about him. By the next morning, fan translation accounts had already subtitled and reposted a clip from a Korean gossip forum where a staff member, anonymized, voice distorted, claimed they'd served the table that night. They weren't talking much, the person said. Mostly looking, mostly quiet. That alone fractured the discourse. Some called it respectful distance, others called it practiced silence. But the detail that set everything ablaze was the mention of timing. They arrived just before peak hours, when foot traffic was guaranteed, but not chaotic. That's not coincidence, a fan tweeted. That's choreography. Speculation turned strategic. Why now? Why after weeks of low activity? Why this specific lounge, known to some for past celebrity traffic? One thread compared it to a performance. Minimalist staging, low light, high tension. Screenshots circulated of old V lives where Jimin talked about liking quiet places, but they only deepened the split. Liking quiet isn't the same as choosing visible quiet, someone wrote. The idea began forming that this wasn't a mistake, that it wasn't even a lapse, but a placement, a frame. The stillness of the moment became louder than any headline. There were too many ways to avoid this, a user posted. He didn't take a single one. And by the end of that scroll, the comment was already being quoted in 5 languages. By late afternoon, the discussion had ruptured into factions, not over affection, not over loyalty, but over logic. A circulating video from a Japanese fan, reportedly taken outside the lounge 2 nights prior, showed Jimin leaving alone through the front entrance. That should have calmed things. Instead, it made everything worse. So he wanted to be seen, someone wrote. No staff exit, no car pulled around the back, just walked out. The comments were less about betrayal now, and more about disruption, the quiet shattering of an unspoken boundary. Fans began overlaying timestamps, comparing frames, isolating reflections in glass and chrome. A blurry shape in the background of a photo. Could that be her coat? Someone enhanced a pixelated corner until it resembled a smile. It didn't matter if it was real. The need to anchor the moment overtook the need to verify it. Archive accounts reopened old theories. Jimin's coded bracelet changes, the color of his nail polish, past mentions of companionship in ambiguous interviews. Theories hardened into suspicion, not through evidence, but through the absence of denial. Silence isn't protection anymore, one thread read. It's a spotlight that doesn't blink. What disturbed many wasn't intimacy. It was the composition of the scene, the distance between chairs, the lack of motion, the placement of glasses with equal fill levels, untouched through 2 songs according to one witness. This wasn't casual, someone insisted. This was calculated stillness. Even neutral voices struggled to diffuse the atmosphere. A major fan page, with over 300,000 followers, deleted its initial defense of him and posted a single sentence instead. We weren't supposed to see that. That line ricocheted across platforms. It wasn't about morality or trust. It was about timing, about space, about rules no one ever said aloud, but everyone had agreed on. And for the first time in a long time, fans weren't trying to understand Jimin's heart. They were trying to understand his decision. Not what it meant, just why it had to happen there. By evening, the atmosphere around the fandom had turned dense. Not angry, not heartbroken, but off balance, like a collective inner ear disturbance. The conversation was no longer about her. She had become a placeholder, a shape in soft focus. The real fixation was on the breach, the misstep. Screenshots showed fans tracing floor plans of the lounge, color-coding zones of visibility, marking which angles could have captured that first photo. It's not that he was seen, one post read. It's that he let himself exist where seeing him would be possible. A subtle but seismic distinction. Larger fan accounts began to fracture. Some issued notes asking for privacy, others posted long threads dissecting the optics, the light, the posture, the seating. One particularly viral post pointed out that the table Jimin chose had no wall behind it, no shield, just the lounge's open floor and the passing of occasional servers. This is what's wrong, it said. He sat where you only sit if you're not worried who might pass behind you. That observation spread like ink in water. The idea that this wasn't recklessness, but comfort. A level of comfort incompatible with the social contract that idols never sign, but always obey. People began combing through recent photos, not of him, but of his silence. The quiet weeks, the rare check-ins, the soft disappearances. Not suspicious on their own, but reframed now as part of a pattern. Someone pulled a freeze frame from a behind-the-scenes shoot months ago where Jimin had looked at the camera between takes, just 1 second too long. That single frame now sat beside the lounge photo in a thread titled, "Maybe he was always too still." The theories were no longer aggressive. They were reverent, cold, surgical. Not a scandal, a study. And as the momentum grew, one fan reply cut through all of it. He sat at a table where you can be seen from the hallway. That's not what you do when you're trying to protect something. That's what you do when you're finished protecting it. It wasn't retweeted thousands of times. It didn't start a movement, but it stayed. Quietly, like the glass left half full, like the chair that wasn't pushed back in. No statements came, no denials, just silence. A silence that didn't feel private, but placed, chosen. And somewhere deep in the feed, where the anger had quieted into static, and the theories had calcified into echo, one voice wrote what many now circled around but couldn't name. He could have waited 10 more minutes. He could have picked the other side of the room. Why didn't he? And that question, unanswered, undismissed, became the final shape of the story.